to take care of you, and he appreciates the confidence you have placed in him. Dr. Hinton is not retiring. He's moved his practice to KDIS. He will continue the care of all of his Caldwell County patients at his KDIS office next to Trigg County Hospital. You can reach Dr. Hinton at 270-522-2557.
It's 8:45 and 1580, 103.3 WPKY. Bill and Misty's in the house. Misty is going to be the host of the WPKY morning show. Will you show up tomorrow?
I'll be here tomorrow.
I thought I probably scared you off after
not
today.
Yet.
Like,
not
you got to
yet.
do this, and you got to do that, and you got to turn the printer on, and you got to... Chief
Turn
Brent
the heat
Francis.
on.
Yes, I was resistant, Chief. I didn't want to break down, but we had to fire up the furnace here at PKY. This was a little cool.
Yes, it has been a little cool, and everybody be firing their heaters up. And while you mentioned that, we'll go ahead and talk about that right quick if you want to.
No, because I'm telling you, things can go terribly wrong in a hurry if you're not ready for the cool weather.
That's correct, and a lot of folks don't think about turning their heat on and trying to burn some of the lint off in the daytime. You know, they'll have their thermostat set, and it gets cold at night, and the heat kicks on and runs, and then it kind of puts that burn smell in the house at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, and that can cause some excitement. So we'd like to recommend maybe go ahead and turn your heat on, let it burn some of the lint off while you're awake during the daytime. Make sure your heater's going to work. You don't want to find out at 1 in the morning when it's 38 outside.
I did that last year, yeah. Don't want to do that again.
That's there's a problem, with your heat. And because everybody's going to have a little lint that'll burn off,
sure.
of their
what about, we'll finish about heat, but I do want to ask you about dryers, because I've heard there's a big problem. Some dryers, it seems like they're blowing out more lint than hot air, and that could be a hazard, too.
That's true. If you don't check your vent hose on your dryer.
Because it collects in there.
Yeah, it doesn't get kinked or blocked. Also, you can go around and check the vent and make sure that the air is coming out of the vent. And then you have a screen on the vent to keep critters from coming back up into the vent.
Yeah.
And that will get stopped up.
See, but mine's hard to get to. I have to, pull it. My washer and dryer are real tight in there, so I'd have to pull it out.
And if you can get to where you can just look at it and make sure it's not pinched against the wall or something like that.
I don't know how it would be. I don't ever get to move it, so.
Yeah, well, maybe you're okay then. But now, especially some of the older guys, I've got one in my basement where you got to get down there and you got to light the pilot light. And, I mean, we got to be smart about that.
That's true, because we take that stuff for granted a lot of times, and year after year after year, and it needs a little attention once in a while. You can go outside where it's venting outside and check and make sure it's got full flow of air coming out.
Yeah.
If it's got full flow of air out there and the screen's not stopped up on the outside vent, then chances are everything's flowing like it's supposed to. Another clue, if your clothes used to dry pretty good on one cycle and then all of a sudden, you've got to hit touch up every time, things like that, that could be an indication that the flow is not good and the dryer's not as good as it used to.
The light just came on. Bill just got what you said. Yeah.
I need more coffee, Chief.
Yeah, which could eventually lead to a problem, because it has to have that airflow if it's going to dry properly and it's not going to overheat.
That makes sense.
And things like that. So those are some things to check as well.
Let me ask you this: if I got, say, I got either a gas water heater or a gas heat or gas stove, whatever, do I need a carbon monoxide detector?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
Is that
if you're burning natural gas or propane or something like that, then you have to heat water, to heat the home, to cook with, to dry with, or anything like that. Any hydrocarbons like that are being burned. Yeah. You have the potential to have carbon monoxide, escape or leak into your home. So yes, you do need to have a CO detector if you're burning any fossil fuels, for heat. That's always a good idea.
And those are not that expensive, are they?
No, they're not that expensive.
But how do I know I'm getting a good? I mean, I don't want to just buy something and it it be a little shaky whether it works or not.
That's correct. And everybody thinks a lot of times they don't realize how old sometimes their smoke detector and their carbon monoxide detectors are, and they're only designed to work so many years. And we get a lot of calls that our detectors
going off. I didn't know that smoke
off.
detectors too.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't either.
You need
did not know
the ones
yes.
in my house, I think, have been there since we bought the house.
Well, that's the case with most folks, and they have a life expectancy. A lot of times it seems to be around 10 years. you probably and
Uh-oh.
you check.
I know, right?
Look
No.
at Misty's face. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
But so what? I mean, if you hit that tester button and it works,
Well,
does it
but
not
see,
really work?
they get dust in them, and then you know the components that sense the carbon monoxide and sense the smoke, you know, they wear out. And a lot of times, what'll happen is their detectors will go off when there is not a problem. And it's because the detector is
Mine's good
failing.
about
Yeah,
that
like-
when I'm cooking. It
I was
goes
gonna
off
say,
all the
I
time.
just
I'm like,
like I just
and then my
baked a
beagle
pie.
starts
It's okay.
howling.
I
Yeah,
just
that
baked a
probably
pie.
is your fault. Yeah. They realize they're fixing to get something to eat because you burnt supper, probably.
I see you've had some of my cooking, Chief. So,
But-
golly, I didn't know that. So, about a 10-year life
know that
expectancy in a
either.
smoke detector.
Yeah,
And is that true with the the carbon
Yes,
monoxide?
yes,
too?
they all have a life expectancy when they need to be replaced. And when just replacing the battery will no longer take care of the beeping, you know,
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
That's also, if you replace the batteries and it's still going off and you know you don't have smoke, you know you don't have carbon monoxide, then chances are it's time to replace the detector.
Is it better to get some of them? They're hardwired into the home, or is that better than the battery, or is it apples and oranges?
It's better. It's better to have a hardwired with battery backup. That's the best.
Okay.
That way, if power goes out, you still have a battery backup. The hardwired ones, they may last a little longer. I'm not certain about that.
Okay.
How long the hardwired ones will last. But pretty much everything has a life expectancy. You know, they may have to do some maintenance on it or replace it at some point. The advantage to the hardwired is so many times people forget to change the batteries, and the batteries are run down. Or if we get our smoke detectors too close to the kitchen, smoke detector, if it's too close to the kitchen, it's going to go off from time to time. And we wind up removing the battery because we have had some smoke, you know, come off of what we're cooking, but it's not an emergency, and then we forget to put the battery back in. So that's where the hardwired really come in handy, is that you don't have to remember to change the batteries, and you don't have to have the problem of. And then I've heard, I'm sure nobody listening's ever done that, but they need a battery for a toy or for something else, you know, and we get the battery out of the smoke detector and plan on getting one tomorrow, and then tomorrow, you know, never comes. So
That's a great Now, what if I'm wheeling something and it gets really cold, and my heat in my house isn't getting it done, and I decide I'm going to bring in a kerosene heater or something like that? That's a whole different ball game, isn't it?
it is, and people need to read the directions on all that stuff.
Even men? 'Cause
Nothing.
usually we don't read directions, Chief, unless we can't
Even the
figure it out.
men.
Even the men.
Yeah, let your wife read the directions to
Misty,
you
now
then.
Mr. Misty, he doesn't read directions, does he? But yeah, I would think of something like
Yeah,
this.
nothing simple. Everything. It is amazing. I've learned over the years how much information I can learn by reading the directions, even on stuff that I thought I understood and knew how to use.
Wow, and coming
There's
from a
always
man,
something.
that's
Yeah.
blowing my mind
Yeah.
right now.
There's always
Chief.
something we can learn by reading the directions, and,
Especially if you read the English side.
read the English side. Yeah, and
I've read the other side, but I'm like, what is? Oh wait, I flip it over. I'm like, I'm not in China.
well, some people maybe can read the other
Well.
parts.
yeah, well,
but
I'm
I
not
have
that
to,
smart.
Yeah, I have to read the English side.
Oh my word! So you definitely, and if it says you take this step, do this in this order, because I mean that's flammable stuff.
You
You're talking
need to do
high
that.
heat.
Yes, during the ice storm, you know, back in the ice storm 2009, we had a lot of people get hurt, and a lot of fires started because people didn't understand alternative heating
Right.
methods, and they made mistakes.
Sure.
And you know, you don't fuel them while they're running. You don't fuel them while they're
Right.
in the house. You don't put gasoline in a kerosene heater.
Right.
You know, we do chuckle about that, but all that has happened, and it has ended in sometimes on
Yeah.
very close to tragedy.
You see the results when
We
the
see
directions aren't followed.
That's correct.
And
we see the results.
I will say I did use the kerosene heater during the ice storm, but I grew up with
it.
That's how we heated our house. I don't even remember having actual heat for a long time. So
Well, we've seen,
I
you
was
know,
a little bit familiar with what to do. Of
we've
course, I
seen-
had, as a child, I'd never fixed my coffee on one like I did during the ice storm, but you know.
We all did things we didn't
I
do
learned
during
that
the ice
trick.
storm.
They're an ice storm, but we just need to be careful and really think about what we're doing. I mean,
Yeah.
We saw metal barrels with charcoal in living rooms, for heat. Carbon monoxide issues.
Right.
That barrel's going to turn cherry red and ignite something, on the outside of the barrel.
Sure.
I mean, when people are cold and power's out and we don't know when it's going to be back in, that's why we have the advantage now to plan ahead before that happens and be ready, be safe, know what we're going to do. If we're all electric, we definitely need to have a plan for backup heat.
Well, Chief, even I was thinking back when we just bought this house, it's over by Kentucky Lake, and we didn't know. We made this fire in the fireplace. Lord knows when it had been used. This squirrel comes running out and smoking the first, smoking. My dad's asleep in the bedroom. We're running around trying to catch that thing. But you need to have your flu checked before you have your first fire.
That is correct.
You can it could be worse than a squirrel. You might get soot or a fire.
Years ago, we went to a lot of chimney fires. And the use of fireplaces and wood-burning stoves is not what it used to be. And then a lot of people have these remote wood burners that set out separate of the house, and the heat comes in. Now, you can still have a fire with those. Everything needs maintenance, and you do need to check your chimney, your flues, your firebox of your home. And some fireplaces are built to be used as fireplaces. Some fireplaces are kind of built more for decoration than actually
That's a really good point.
Heating. And so you need to understand how it was built. And if you build a house with a fireplace, you need to insist that they build it, for having fires in it. Another thing that can cause problem, and this time of the year is coming up, is we only have fires once or twice a year, like at maybe Thanksgiving or Christmas. Christmas is a big time, to have a fire in the fireplace. Maybe once, the only time you're going to have it the whole year. Possibly. And then people like to try to burn wrapping paper and things like that in the fireplace.
Guilty as charged. Boy, that stuff.
I was just sitting here thinking, why not?
That stuff. Oh, man, that's like pouring gas on fire.
Well,
really?
Most people like to play with fire a little bit and burn the wrapping
Guilty
paper.
As charged.
Things like that. And that's one thing that can get your flue on fire because there's a pretty good draft. And when that paper starts burning big, it'll suck it up the chimney on fire.
Yeah.
2 or 3 things can happen there. When it hangs, because we haven't cleaned the chimney out, or it hits the squirrel nest or the bird nest.
I have got a lot of work to do after this visit.
Then it can set the creosote buildup on fire.
Okay.
And then we have a flue fire. And then that can bust the liner because
and you need tiny
too hot.
Firefighters to get into the flue to put it out. That's a hassle.
And it can suck the paper all the way out the top.
Oh.
Let it drift down
Still
on the
on
roof
fire.
or in the yard. Now we have a grass fire or the roof's, we burn a hole in the roof that's going to leak later if it don't catch the house on fire.
Right.
So it's a good idea to check the flue, make sure it's clean, and you don't want to get it super hot, crack the liners, things like that. It can cause damage if we get a creosote fire. A lot of times the creosote fires are contained. They wind up scaring everybody real bad because they roar. They start a huge draft. Sparks can be flying out and settling back down in the yard and on the roof. So it's better just to avoid that excitement if at all possible. And if you do have a flue fire, one thing you can do to help that is take a glass of water, maybe an 8-ounce glass of water, and add a little water slowly to the firebox and let that steam go up and smother the fire that's in the chimney. You don't want to put too much water too fast because the firebox is going to be really hot.
Yeah.
The flue is going to be real hot. Slowly let some steam go up the chimney, and a lot of times that will calm the fire down and maybe even put it out without putting so much moisture up there to cause the flue to crack or your firebox, your wood-burning stove or something like that to warp or crack.
Well, we're just about out of time. I do want to ask, as it gets cooler, we love our bonfires and we love our burn piles and we like to burn outside, but there's probably some things we're not doing and we need to do when we plan to do that.
Kentucky Department of Forestry has restrictions, and it's very confusing. Everybody's always confused. They think it's a ban.
I stay confused, and I read the news stories.
Yeah. There are burn bans sometimes that are issued, but those are during extreme conditions. When conditions get past an extreme point, where wildfires are especially prone to occur, that forestry, along with county judges, can issue actual bans. But what's automatic every year is in the spring and the fall, there are time restrictions, which are called bans a lot of times, and they're not a ban. When forestry requires that you wait until 6 p.m. in the afternoon and burn from 6 p.m. till 6 a.m. The reason for that is the moisture content comes up in the air late in the evenings. The winds usually die down, and so you have a little bit higher humidity. You have less winds normally through the night and late, and so they ask people to wait until 6 p.m. to start burning a brush pile or brush. Now, if it's a big brush pile and it's not going to burn up in that 12-hour period, they ask you to wait, let it die down through the day. You don't have to put it out, you know, at 6 a.m. the next morning, but let it die down through the day. Of course, keep an eye on it because the winds may pick back up. The humidity, you know, dries out a little bit. The fuels dry out a little bit, and then wait till 6 o'clock the next afternoon before you try to build it back up, you know, to try to burn it. Because I know some of the piles, it may take a week, you know, to burn up.
Right.
And now the time restriction is when conditions are favorable. If we have severe weather in the forecast where the winds, you know, thunderstorms or high winds, it would not be a good idea to, even though it's 6 in the afternoon, to start a fire if we have thunderstorms in the forecast for that night, because that can definitely spread the fire, you know, out of control. And if you have even if you set a fire during legal burning times and it's legal material that you're burning, which is only natural vegetation, leaves, limbs, wood, no garbage or any synthetic stuff, no furniture, no carpet, no roofing, no tires, anything like that is ever legal to burn. If the fire gets out, even though you started it after 6 p.m., you're still liable for the damage, you know, that it does, because you have to be able to keep your fire under control at all times.
That makes it. Chief, thank you so much for coming in.
Yes.
I got to go shopping for batteries and smoke detectors.
Yes. I got to instruct my husband on how to properly do a burn pile.
If we've got time to, gas logs, that we have another problem, they have to be cleaned every year if we throw that in.
Oh, go ahead, real quick.
Because your ventless gas logs, like a lot of people have put ventless gas logs in their fireplaces, stuff like that, they have to be cleaned every year. Because if the air gets restricted from just a little bit of dust or a little bit of spider webs or something, constricts the flow of air into the burners. Then they'll start putting off carbon monoxide. Even though they're ventless, they have to be cleaned, and they need to be cleaned before every season, or they can put off deadly amounts of carbon monoxide in your house.
Ooh,
those logs,
a lot of folks have those.
They have to be put in there exactly like they came from the factory. If you change those logs around where the flame is impinging on one of the fake logs in the gas log sets, or anything's different about how it was designed to burn from the factory, then it can start putting off carbon monoxide. A lot of people don't realize that. Log gets knocked off or something, or you remove the logs to clean it. You need to make sure you put those logs back exactly like they're supposed to go.
They're there that way for a reason.
They're there for a reason. They don't impinge that flame, which can cause it to put off carbon monoxide.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am scared straight. I got to buy a carbon monoxide detector now.